Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump have been linked for several years, largely kind of bogus, fraudulent, non-existent links, but nonetheless, in the public mind, they've been linked. But now they are linked by a particular ties which come through on Friday. The International Criminal Court in The Hague issued an arrest warrant against President Putin on the charges of abduction of children from Ukraine. There was no indictment. There was just an arrest warrant and an assertion, a press release claiming that Russia had been kidnapping children from Ukraine, shipping them off to Russia. And of course, all the usual crowd, the Human Rights Brigade, was celebrating accountability. Leaders can no longer escape from their crimes. In the meantime, Donald Trump has let it be known that he expects to be arrested on Tuesday because an indictment has been issued against him by the Manhattan DA's office. We talked about this last week, a theory of the case that was just so bizarre, we couldn't quite understand it. And it's looking like other legal scholars don't seem to be able to understand it. So Jonathan Turley has said that this just makes absolutely no sense. Alan Dershowitz has said no sense. However, I mean, the two cases are linked because this is lawfare. In other words, how you use the criminal justice system in order to go after your enemies. Now, of course, all these indictments and arrest warrants have no legal worth. I mean, the International Criminal Court has no legal validity whatsoever. Nonetheless, it serves the public relations purpose of demonizing the target. And of course, what they're trying to do is to limit the President Putin's travel plans, so that wherever he can go anywhere, and lo and behold, he can be arrested. And the same thing goes with Trump. And in both cases, this is the first of several indictments. I mean, this is not going to just end this week. They're going to be more and more and more of these indictments as part of this demonization process. It's kind of very chilling, but this is where we are. I mean, this is where the total abuse of the criminal justice system to go after one's political adversaries. This is today's West. What's your take, Peter?
Well, yeah, exactly. The indictment, Donald Trump is indicted. No former president has ever been indicted. I mean, this must be serious. I mean, they wouldn't indict him unless there was some there. That's exactly what, it's so frivolous. I'm sorry, everyone. I think George is one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Okay. And I like to compare myself to his intelligence, but I can't make heads or tails of this indictment. Oh, I read it. I don't understand it. Okay. Whatsoever. Okay. I mean, what I get from it is that Donald Trump ripped himself off. That's
what it sounds like. He ripped himself off. Exactly. I mean, the theory of the case is he paid off an extortionist. So it's like this woman was an extortionist, porn actress, claimed she had an affair. This was a nuisance suit. Trump acted as many celebrities act when they're confronted by nuisance suits. He decided to just pay her off. It was done by his lawyer, whatever legal advisor, Michael Cohen. And then Trump made good on this payment out of his own pocket. Presumably, he was acting according to legal advice, which was said to him, this is the way to handle nuisance suits. You go through a lawyer, and then you reimburse your lawyer. But then they said, oh, but this was counted. He was tabulated as a legal expense, whereas in fact it's a business expense, and so therefore he was doing some sort of violating campaign law. This is the part where I don't get how it violates a campaign law.
It has nothing to do with the federal law. It has nothing to do with the state law.
Right.
Okay. And you know what, everyone? If you run for political office, I can guarantee you can have Alan Dershowitz right next to your side, and you will violate election campaign laws. Okay. Everybody, because it's so complicated. Okay. Also, okay, the second half here is, Putin is indicted. No, he's not, but that's what people are going to say. Okay, that's the whole point. Like Nuremberg. Well, Nuremberg was a serious affair, very ominous. Okay, again, making these connect. That's all they want to do is make connections. George is absolutely right. These are they're very frivolous. It's lawfare. It's for public consumption. It's for bombast. Okay, and other than that, and it's always going to be. But he was indicted. They both were indicted.
That's right.
And that's how it's going to be played over and over and over again. And
right.
It'll be very easy to do because George and I are very fastidious here. When people mention historical events like Suez of 56 or Munich in 38, a lot of people in the media get it wrong. They get things upside down, inverted. They get the wrong date, sometimes the wrong people. Okay, but this is something it'll be easy to digest. Okay, it'll slip right down through your gullet. Okay, and for a good number of people in the elites, this is exactly what they want you to believe. Okay, to destroy and tarnish reputations of others. That has nothing to do with what happened in the 2020 election, George. Okay. And why did this conflict start in Ukraine? Okay.
Right.
It's all a huge deflection, and it's all intentional.
Yes, exactly right. And of course, and as you've spoken also in the past about what was really happening with these children. And of course, the theory of the case makes no sense. Why would Russians go around kidnapping children? I mean, what do they gain by this? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. These were children orphaned because the Ukrainians had murdered their parents through all the shelling and which they're still doing, shelling civilian areas on a regular basis. They were taken to Russia because so many Russians were happy to adopt these orphans. Why would they kidnap children from their parents and take them to Russia? I mean, that's not what Russia will do. No one does that. I mean, there's steal children. I mean, what is the point of that?
Also, I mean, again, kidnap. How is it kidnapping? Okay, right. I don't know. Thank God, neither one of us were orphans, but I think it's fair to assume that if you're put in a house with a lot of children with, you lost your parents, you would like to have a safe, comfortable, warm, loving home. And this is what they have been provided with. I know that for a fact. I can't go into details because of litigation and all that, but adopting these children is not easy. There's a long line. People are really checked out here to be able to adopt, and people want to. And from what I understand, I'm not a native-born Russian, but adopting children is not kind of a long tradition here. But for the victims of these families in the Donbass, which is visceral for this country, is that these children need to be taken care of. They've been traumatized. They've been through enough. Okay, and to have the ICC say kidnapping. And there was no evidence shown, George. None. A claim was made, but they've given no evidence whatsoever, except for the Ukrainian authorities. Well, I'm sorry, that's not enough.
Yeah. And one sad aspect of it is I remember the time when it used to be the fashionable thing in the West was to go to Russia and adopt orphans from Russia. And I think as Stephen Cohen explain what was the reason for this. Well, there are many parents who want to adopt children, but unfortunately, they want to adopt white children, and there just aren't enough white children to adopt in the United States and in Europe, but there was in Russia, and that's why there was such a huge demand to adopt children from Russia. But some of them were abused, and then after the the sanctions, also get that accountant, the Browder accountant,
right? Magnitsky.
Magnitsky. After the Magnitsky Act, Putin said that's it, no more adoptions. So I mean, you could say that was a kind of an abduction. I mean, these were just essentially Western tourists coming to Russia, sniffing out, where are there some children?
And George, just a caveat there, a lot of these people wouldn't be able to adopt children in America, and they thought it would be easier, and it was at a certain point of time easier to adopt children. And then when they realized some of these families that they abused these children they adopted, then they changed their mind. Okay. I on a visit, getting my passport renewed, the visiting room was packed, and it was all people adopting children. And I just thought, I wonder if you'd be allowed to adopt in America. I'll leave it at that.
I think that's a very that's a very good point. Exactly. There was so the rules would be much easier in Russia, but it's what kind of, and that's the whole point. Now, what they've done with this arrest warrant, which is, again, the arrest warrant itself is based entirely on the claims of Zelensky and his gang. That's it. I mean, they've done no investigation. They've not,
they haven't had any control over the Donbass since 2014.
Right. Exactly. And this claim has been repeatedly made by Zelensky about this abduction of children. And so this is it. This is what they basing it on. Itself is kind of bizarre, because after all, hey, you're saving the lives of children, and you're not killing children. I mean, you're saving their lives, but they've chosen to draw a line in the sand on this one. But as I said, I think they're going to have others. I think there's going to be more and more of these indictments, and I think they're going to pretty much include the entirety of Russia's ruling elite. I mean, I'm sure Lavrov will be indicted at some point, Zakharova. They're going to start running out of people, much like the sanctions. You start running out of more sanctions to impose.
So, explain this to me. So it's okay for the Kiev regime to shell children in the Donbass.
Exactly.
But it's not okay for these children to be given refuge. Right. The Donbass is part of Russia now, so to be into the interior. So it's okay to shell them. It's okay to kill them. But and I would like to add, a number of Ukrainians over the last 8 years have said, well, if you're Russian, why don't you leave Donbass and go to Russia? Well, at least these children are. Okay, you can't have it both ways at the same time. Okay, and of course, George is right. This is a cudgel. Okay, children. No, they don't care about the children being smuggled in the southern border and abused and put into child sex rings. Okay, no, they don't care about that. They care about children where nobody in the West has any concrete on the ground verifiable information. And it's no secret in Russia that these children are being adopted. It's in the media all the time.
Exactly right. So they're being adopted, and the smuggling going on in the United States, smuggling going on in Europe, where people are paying huge sums of money to these human traffickers. And remember, these human traffickers, they need to be paid. You can either pay them up front. If you can't pay them up front, then you're put to work. And what does that mean, being put to work? You're being put to work as a sex slave. That's how you pay off these traffickers. It's an absolutely horrific, disgusting story. But again, Ursula von der Leyen, she doesn't seem much interested in that. She's very worried about the children in the Donbass. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to leave these children to the tender mercies of the Ukrainian authorities, the very same Ukrainian authorities have been shelling civilians for now 9 years, who have imposed sanctions against the Donbass for 9 years. You just leave them there. Oh, they'll look after these children. Oh yeah, I'm sure they will. So none of that has made any sense at all. But of course, the point is that you have this now. The way the media are going to describe it is that Putin an indicted war criminal, or Putin, who is wanted on war criminal charge. That's it. That's always going to be
much like Hermann Goering was indicted in Nuremberg.
That's right.
Right.
That's it. That's how you do it. And I think it's very important that people focus and realize the ICC is a fraudulent, bogus, idiotic organization. Don't start buying into the idea that this is somehow some legal validity or judicial authority. Oh, it'll be okay, if they indict George W. Bush. I'm for Putin.
I'm waiting for the day.
But I want Bush.
Waiting for the day.
Waiting for the day. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. When is Tony Blair going to be arrested? It is not going to be arrested. The ICC was created by the United States. I mean, people just think, oh, the United States doesn't accept the ICC jurisdiction. Yeah, that's true. But the United States created the ICC. So it was baked in that it creates this organization, but it won't accept its judicial authority. And why did it want to create this? Precisely to target the adversaries of the United States.
And it was created for the sole purpose of the destruction of Yugoslavia.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It's just a template. Okay. So, you have the same template and you change the country. Okay.
Right. That's it. That was it. Now, and unfortunately, many African countries naively bought into the idea, well, there's going to be a government accountability and, end of impunity. So they signed on to it. And of course, what did they get by signing on to it? Well, all kinds of Africans were indicted. And so almost
I wouldn't be surprised, George, that these African countries signed on because they thought the imperialists, they will finally be brought to justice. No. The imperialists are going after you again.
Exactly. It's a new colonialism. I mean, again, you thought they should have known that that's what it is. Of course, it's the new colonialism. I mean, yeah, it's the same, like, the white man's burden, the missionary, we're here to save you. And so, yeah. So now here's this criminal tribunal, and you are the defendants, and we are the judges, and we are the prosecutors, and we are also your defense counsel, by the way. So you're entirely dependent on us.
And if it goes on long enough, the prosecutors can buy a second house in the Hamptons.
That's right. That's right. And so
don't underestimate the
oh yeah, no, there's absolutely. That's very important. They make a lot of money, and it's also very, very good for their careers. If you're a lawyer, and you've done a few years at the ICC, that's very big on your resume, and then you go back and, you get a partnership.
That Smith guy that was...
That's what I was going to say. The Smith guy, who is the special counsel looking into Trump's crimes about mishandling classified information, had done a stint at the ICC. So that's something nice to put on your resume.
He's an American, right? He's an
American, exactly.
Yeah, so but again, America doesn't recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. Right. Remember that, everyone.
Exactly. It doesn't recognize it, but it actively cooperates with it. It's actively working with it. It always has. And remember again with Gaddafi, when they were bombing Libya, and then lo and behold, the ICC issued, Ocampo, whatever the prosecutor's name was, issued, oh, that's it, we're indicting Gaddafi. You haven't done any investigation, or not, that's it, we know Gaddafi committed war crimes. And then, and that's the way you do this. And it's a wonderful shot in the arm for the humanitarian brigade, the propaganda says, oh, look, this is the man we're up against, Gaddafi. He has now been indicted by the International Criminal Court. Whoa, he must be a really bad guy.
Yeah, so he prosecuted war criminals, but the fact is, it was a prosecution by a bogus court, a kangaroo court. Yes. Okay, right. George is absolutely right. Even the lawyers for the defendants are paid for by the ICC.
Yeah.
That's a very convenient arrangement, isn't it?
That's right. And it's also important to remember that if you're a defense counsel and you apply for a job at the ICC, they're not just going to hire you. They want a defense counsel who will play ball with them. That's it. So you can forget that, the idea that, well, we need some, the idea that some street tough guy from Brooklyn, I want to be a defense counsel, the kind of guy who's making trouble for judges. He's not going to get a job at the ICC. They want, defense counsel who will play ball with them, who go through the motions of defending their defendants, and then gracefully lose and bow out. That's what they want.
I remember when the Serbs were put on trial, it'd be like 11:30 in the morning. Well, we're going to recess until next Friday. Everybody have a nice brunch. Okay?
That's it.
It just went on and on.
Oh, yeah,
on
absolutely.
and on.
Yeah. And that, exactly. They're very much not overworked because it's a huge budget. So they have a large staff, and they have young people who want to build their resumes. They work very happy to work on the staff of the ICC, and they do it all. And the judges, exactly. Monday 11:30 a.m. I think it's time to knock off till Friday. And Friday, it was always half day, so we'll just knock off till Friday.
And of course, hopefully, the tribunal will be held in some wonderful scenic Italian village. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want these court proceedings get in the way of my sightseeing.
That's right. So, but it is a kangaroo court. So it goes through all of the procedures. The judges all wear these, they wear uniforms, like that. And then they all sit there, 3 judges, looking very sage. And then, they're shuffling papers around, no one knows what these papers are, we have a motion, let's submit your motion. Do you have a response to this motion? Yes, we have a response to this motion. And they all kind of going through this whole procedure. Yes, well, what about an interlocutory motion? Here's the interlocutory motion. And it looks like some serious legal judicial work is being done here. Nothing of the sort. It's a kangaroo court. The whole point of a kangaroo court is that it goes through the motions.
It's the first level of punishment for the defendant, the boredom.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. But you're sitting exactly as a defendant, and you think, well, there's some serious work going on here. I mean, they're all going through his motions, and then in the defense counsel, and then, what about the amici, the friends of the court? What do they have a motion? Yeah, well, we have a motion. And so suddenly there's piles and piles of paper kind of piling up, but it's still a kangaroo court. I mean, if you're going through the motions, but the outcome is already known and predetermined, then that's it. That's just a kangaroo court. But they're pretending that this is a serious court. So that's why all of these, these responsible statecraft, anti-interventionist, anti-imperialist types, they have to get out of the idea of looking at the ICC as anything other than just simply a tool of, Western domination of the world.
Just think about it, George. They get this thing set up. It's like a career for some people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just think, we could drag this could be 7, 8 years. I don't know. Maybe
right.
more, 10.
Oh yeah. And
they can always add more defendants, more and more defendants.
Yeah, that's right. And they had it. So most of the defendants up until now have been Africans. They were from all over Africa, and then they had Libyans, and it was very nice because obviously you can't go after anyone in NATO, and incidentally, we must not forget the ICC. Because of all these do-gooder type, they badgered the ICC. Well, what about looking into Iraq? Investigate Iraq. The American crimes in Iraq. So the ICC, they went into investigation years and years. They investigate, and they find no war crimes here. Sorry, I don't see it.
We were thorough. No,
we were thorough. We went through it, and we went through all the charges, and we didn't find any war crimes.
And indicting the Russians, is that those torture films of Russian soldiers being tortured by Ukrainians that were ubiquitous in the internet. Couldn't verify them, George.
No, couldn't verify, exactly. Couldn't. Yeah.
Not one.
That's right. That's right. It is kind of amazing, isn't it? The Ukrainians have been shelling civilians for years. I mean, everything they're doing now is they're just shelling civilians. I mean, it's explicitly they're not doing anything other than trying to kill as many civilians as possible. But apparently, the ICC just can't. There's nothing here. I'm sorry. We can't find anything.
But
please do. You're welcome to come up with evidence. We'll examine any evidence that you may have.
But it's presumably such a court has contact with Ukraine because Ukraine is given a special dispensation. But the same authorities have not had jurisdiction in the Donbass for 9 years, but they know what's going on the ground. Right. That's remarkable,
Yes,
George.
yes. It is remarkable because in other words, there's no way that they could have conducted any kind of investigation. They're entirely reliant upon the one side, all this information on one side. Well, that's not really what forensic investigation is supposed to be about. I mean, your forensic investigation is supposed to be about, disinterested examination of evidence. You don't just simply, hear from one side and say, okay, well, I'm convinced a crime was committed here.
Well, hearsay has a very high bar in our court.
Exactly, hearsay. That's right. I mean, all of these things. I mean, you've got these ICC. Hearsay is allowed, which is a quite ridiculous thing, because I mean that gives defendants no chance at all because they're not able to challenge. I mean, if it's something that's happened in a situation where the defense has no means of verifying it, then I mean,
I didn't hear it. Okay,
too bad you didn't hear it. I heard it though. Yes. But well, yeah,
at least 3 other people that knew 2 other people 5 years ago heard it from someone.
That's right. Heard it from someone. Yeah. I mean, that's right. And I heard it from someone. Yeah, I know about a friend of mine. He was tortured. And he told me that these Russians, they were just cursing us. They were torturing me and so on. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds compelling evidence. So all of it. So there are no jury there, and also, there's no bail there, so it's not like you can go in and they'll, you get temporary release until trial. No.
No Sam Bankman-Fried treatment.
No, you don't. Yeah, exactly. Go stay with your wealthy parents, on their estate. No. Once they have you there, you are locked up. You're like the January 6th.
George, this is a serious question. What is the acquittal rate?
Just what?
The acquittal rate.
Oh, the acquittal rate, I think, is negligible, and I don't think anyone's been acquitted. I mean, you can get certain charges maybe thrown out, but nobody just simply walks. Okay, I'm free. The ICTY was a classic because, of course, the Serbs were always found guilty, and often what happened is that let's say in the case of Radovan Karadzic. He's found guilty of genocide. The court sentences him to 40 years in prison, which for a quite elderly man is already effectively a life sentence. But the prosecutor appealed that. They said, that's too light. That's too, lenient. I want the life sentence. And the judges are, and then exactly, no, you're absolutely right. The appellate court ruled 40 years was too light. He is sentenced to life.
So oh my God, come on. They don't see the how satirically stupid this is.
No.
They take themselves very seriously.
They take themselves, and they practice what's known as victims' justice. But of course, victims' justice, is simply a political ploy, because who are the victims? Well, the victims are politically engaged actors. So it's like, in this case, the Ukrainians will be, well, we're the victims. So you must, we want justice, and we define what justice is. So in the case of Yugoslavia, the victims, like Bosnian Muslims, and we're the victims. So we want you to do what we want you to do. So we want you to find these people guilty and sentence them to life. I mean, they prefer if they could sentence them to death, but since Europe is banned the death penalty, so the best you can do is life. But that's it. So what they call victims' justice is just the continuation of war by other means. It's nothing to do with justice. It's just let's continue the war against the Serbs.
Yeah. It's just another front that's been opened. But these. I'm sure I can answer my own question, but I'm going to ask George anyway in wrapping this up here. charges are never withdrawn, are they?
No, no, no.
Yeah, see,
no,
that's it. Okay. So this is another sphere that we've gone into. Okay.
Right.
And the West does it at its own peril.
Right.
Okay. Because, years and years and years after the conflict comes to an end in Ukraine, and it will, are they going to rescind these things? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's a huge, the chasm gets deeper and wider and wider. And, it comes from one side. One side
Right.
initiates this
Yeah.
and pushes it,
Yes.
pushes the envelope.
Yes.
And without any regard for the consequences of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. And of course, such actions make any kind of peace agreement almost impossible, because of course, well, what's your incentive to come to any kind of agreement? I mean, because you still got this thing hanging over you. I mean, you still got all these indictments, and that one side is going to continue to push for this. They're going to, because we know that, all right, Putin can, say he travel to countries. Okay, well, let's say he can still travel to countries, even though which countries that have signed the Rome Statute and so on. All right, even if they'll say, okay, we won't arrest Putin. He can visit our country, we won't arrest him. But there'll be Americans there who are going to try and make citizens arrests. They're going to do this. They're going to be doing everywhere.
No, George, just rendition. Okay, I don't even think they'll even go through the formalities. Okay, I mean, it'll be a SWAT team and everything else. Okay, exactly. And then we'll tie up loose ends later. Okay,
That's right. You're absolutely right. Exactly. It would be a rendition. They would just abduct him, and then if somebody will complain, you violated our sovereignty, and what are you going to do about it? So that's it. So
we blow up pipelines. You think we care about sovereignty?
Right. No, yeah, exactly. And that's of course what they did with in the case of Milosevic, because there Yugoslavia's constitutional court had said that you can't extradite Milosevic to The Hague without going through proper legal procedures. So what happened? Well, they just simply seized Milosevic and just bundled him off to The Hague. That's actually the constitutional court having ruled, said you can't extradite, you have to go through a legal process. Well, we don't go through any goddamn legal process. We're just going to take him to The Hague. So the same thing they're going to try and pull in the case of Putin. And any other Russian. I mean, I think it's going to be every Russian is now going to be in serious danger of being abducted and shipped off to The Hague.
Okay, and they will talk about we need negotiations. Oh, really? Okay, I mean that they're pushing that further. That's why I've maintained my position that there will be no negotiations. It will be unilaterally decided by the Russian side, and we'll have to live with the consequences because there wasn't an interlocutor. And the interlocutor that potentially could be out there is behaving in the most callous, dangerous, mindless fashion.
Right.
Based on no evidence.
That's right. Exactly, based on no evidence. And they do not want any kind of negotiations. They don't want any kind of a peace agreement. Their only interest is, how do we keep this war going for that much longer? And I mean, we had that guy, the national Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman, when he was asked, well, what do you think of the Chinese peace proposal? No, I don't like it because they're calling for immediate ceasefire. We don't want an immediate ceasefire because that's going to reward Russia. And violates the UN Charter. So we'll just continue, keep the war going.
But at the same time, on the other side of his mouth, it's all up to Ukraine. It's all, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
That's right, yes.
Which Kirby are we talking to?
I know,
the good Kirby, the bad Kirby,
right.
the odd day, even day Kirby.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And it's funny though, the Western media never even point out this obvious contradiction. The United States has already said that the Chinese peace plan is a non-starter. But didn't you say that everything was up to Ukraine? Nothing. That it's Ukraine who's making the decision. We're just doing what Zelensky wants us to do. But apparently we make the decision. It's a non-starter.
That's where we stand right now. George and I keep an eye on the ICC. George has there are very few people in the world that know the ICCY as well as George does. So I think we'll get a tutorial here on the parallels and how it's being a bad history is being repeated here. So,
absolutely.
All right, everybody, this is Peter and George. We're the Gaggle. We're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Visit our store. Sunday, well, it's closer and closer to Tuesday.
It's closer and closer. And Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's time for my Locals live stream. Come with comments, criticisms, suggestions. Everything is welcome. And on the way out the door, think about little buddy. Think about that tip jar. He's very litigious. And so when he hears, discussions about courts, he's suddenly thinking, "Hey, maybe I can make some kind of a citizen's arrest."
But he wouldn't mind a house of the Hamptons, I can guarantee.
That's right. So, we don't want, Buddy, enforcing any kind of citizen's arrest. So if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip him out, dunk him in his tip jar. That'll keep him happy. We're very grateful for all of your help and friendship and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more of these, more we can improve the technology, and above all, we can keep Buddy away from the courts, which is very dangerous. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.